Welcome to Steel Beam Rally Team, I'm Tyler. In the last episode we pulled the engine, transaxle, the whole drivetrain out of my 63 Corvair. It is time to pull this thing apart, figure out what's broken with it, what needs to be fixed, and let's pull it apart. Oh. Not a single speck on the drain plug, that's awesome. A lot of fuel in there, but no chunks. No sludge that I could see, so that's overall maybe a good sign. The exhaust should come out pretty easy because it's so covered in oil. Oh, she's rusty. The engines obviously are known for leaking oil, but the oil leaks actually help them stay not rusty. I want to get the valve covers off so I can get a better idea of what's going on in here, see maybe if I can find the other head bolts and all that stuff. So we're going to get a little bit of oil off first, hopefully. Oh man. All right. See how it goes. All right. Missed a couple oil changes, it looks like, but not too bad. With the valve covers off now, I want to see how I can get to the other head bolts. So I'm going to have to pull off the shrouds on the bottom. I think I'll just pull the back shrouds off as well. Oh, nasty. Oh, God.
The mouse was in there.
You think? Oh, that is so gross. We got our fourth golf tee here, but we also have just mouse house everywhere. So no wonder this thing isn't cooling. It's really disgusting. That is a heck of a pile of crap there. On the other side, I took the thermostatic flapper thing off first, and then I pulled off the lower shroud, and that worked a lot better, so it came off in kind of one big piece. We also have some stuff in here, but it's not quite as bad as the other side. Up underneath, we can see our push rod tubes, just like a Porsche, and I'm not sure, here's the temp sensor that was hooked up, so that's good. Not sure where the head bolts are, so I'll have to look at the diagram there and figure that out. I like that the exhaust manifolds are held on by these pressed steel or stamped steel retainers instead of having holes in the manifold itself. It seems like a lot better system that is less likely to crack, hopefully. I've learned that the head bolts on the top here are here. The head bolts on the bottom are behind the rockers. So we are going to pull the rocker arms off. And the studs that those ride on are actually the, I think the nuts that go onto the head. Rather take longer and do it right than take less time, do it wrong, and take 3 times as long to do it. Pulled all 6 spark plugs out, and they look pretty consistent. They're kind of dark, but nothing goofy happening. No rust on them. And then behind the oil cooler, we found a little bit of debris. So I figured out to take off the rear, or the front shroud. They call it the front because it's toward the front of the car, but it's the rear of the engine. We have to take the exhaust off. Okay. Nice. Oh God, that's nasty. There's a piece of a spine in this thing. It's disgusting. Oh God. Oh, I'm not that squeamish, but dead body parts are not ideal. So I think now that that's off, this should come off. Oh yeah. Sweet. How's that look? We got quite a bit of debris here too. So we're gonna have to try to pull the whole head off now. I think it should come. See if this will do anything. Get it hot. Oh, something's coming apart here. It's not coming apart the way I wanted it to, but looks like we're getting closer to where we want to be. And there's no structure in here, so I can't. Right. You can't be hitting it too bad, but looks like there's enough to move it a little bit. So I'm looking at why this cylinder on the back, I think it's cylinder 6, is not coming loose. And it looks like there's some corrosion along the head stud inside the head here. And then this seems to be relatively clear. And then there might be some more corrosion in this fin part of the head. Unfortunately, we do have these fins here, so we can't just beat on it. We have another head stud down here that might have the same issue. So we're gonna try to warm this stuff up, probably throw some penetrating oil in either side of both, and see if we can get that to kind of loosen itself up a little bit.
Ever so lightly.
Animal's been pissing on the cylinders. Be very gentle with this. Do you have a jacking system where we could put a jack against here and against the crankcase and push them apart? Hopefully this will damage the wood before it damages the aluminum too. We're a low budget operation around here. So a couple days later, we are kind of at a standstill on this head. I've been working on that one stud, the stud on the top front, and it seems like it's, well, I know it's kind of seized into the outside of the head. The stud moves through the head in two parts. There's an outside part, and there's the finned inside part. It's free on the inside part, but I've tried just about everything that's non-destructive. I'm gonna have to step it up a notch with that. But before we talk about that, I've also got the passenger side head all stripped down, ready to be at that point too. So let's see if we can get this thing off gently, and if I have to use force for both of them, I can do it both at once. Jeez. Be careful in here. Come on. I've been trying on this head and failing on this head. Now the head is free on the back side, and it's hanging up on something on the front side. I'm gonna do a little bit more investigation, probably pull out all the push rod tubes, and just for good measure, take them all out and see if I can get this thing past whatever it's on. There is no radiator, but that doesn't mean there are no problems. Oh, it's coming off. Huh. Just a little bit of tapping, huh? Come on now. Okay. Oh yeah, come on. I got it. Whew. That's our cylinder head. All right, and there's a nut that was stuck in the intake forever. Now, those valves definitely need to be gone over. It looks pretty crusty in there, but it's all there. It's a head, and it's a hypo engine, so I think the heads are pretty important in these engines. We got the head off. Woo! See if I can get this off the cylinder. Yeah. Oh. Okay. All right. Yeah, not, there's no cross hatching left. These things definitely need a little, at least a ding ball, but, you know, considering the condition of all this stuff, I don't think it's a bad idea to replace these at all. Not a bad idea at all. Oh, there's like, what is that? Some kind of skin from some insect. Ugh. I spent about the whole darn week on these heads, and there's only so much procrastinating I can do. I think it's time to try the double nut technique on the stud, and if that doesn't work, we got to get the hot glue gun out. All right. It's definitely twisting the stud on the outside, but I don't... Actually, it's twisting the stud all the way through, isn't it? Let's see if that'll take it off. My gut says that all I really needed was to get the stud broken loose from inside there, so we'll see if I was right. So I ended up putting a vice grip just very gently on these. You could use a plier too, and just twisting them and pulling the push rod tubes out. They are very nasty, and you can tell how much gunk there is there. And I think what was happening is when I pull the head out, it would get to a certain point and it would kind of hang up on the seals, because there are oil seals on each side of, 6 of these. So I think that all the seals together were giving me a hard time pulling it out. So with all these out, I'm able to pull this thing further out. I'm actually getting a couple threads further than I was just a few minutes ago. I think I might be able to pull it off finally. Oh yeah. What was that? There was a socket in there. There's a 8-point star socket in the head. Jeez, holy crap. Oof. Should be able to pull it off now. Oh yeah. Whew. Oh man. As far as cross hatching, there is none. There's actually some scoring, which I might have done pulling it off, but definitely looks like these have worn themselves into a nice groove in there. Let's take a look at this thing now. So this is a view you don't get very often, is the combustion chamber itself. You can see the spark plug on the top. So kind of the Pistons view. I've been thinking about what I want to do with these cylinders, and originally I was going to take them out and powder coat them, get them recoated, and do a little dingle ball hone, throw them back on and go. But looking at them, you know, the cross hatching is gone. There are some score marks from, I think, from removing them. I don't know if that was from actually running it. And then I have one of them has a broken fin. And I just think that after sandblasting, getting them ceramic coated, and doing all the work to hone them and everything, I still might end up with just worn out cylinders. So what's the point of that? I might end up spending like $600 just revamping the cylinders and getting them coated. You know how things spiral out of control with costs. So I think I'm just going to go all new. just grab a set of cylinders and pistons from Clark's. That's about $800 some, I believe, last time I checked. That should give me just a reliable engine here, reliable top end. I think reliability is going to be paramount for this vehicle. I do need it to be the car that I go and just hop in and drive somewhere. I don't need to be breaking down anywhere or burning oil. And I will just sleep better knowing that it's all taken care of. Obviously, an engine alone does not make a good commuter, a rally car, or anything. So I also need to take a good look at the differential, the transmission, the suspension. Everything here needs to be gone over, the brakes too. So we're going to try to take our next step and pull everything off this thing. I want to drop the transmission engine out of the Crossmember subframe here. We're going to take this whole thing, get it powder coated, get all new shocks, and get everything redone, all new bushings and all new brakes. It's going to make it happen. If you're following this project and you've made it this far in the video, you're probably also going to be interested because I checked the codes on all this stuff. This is the highest horsepower naturally aspirated engine they offered in 1963. It's a 102 horsepower engine. It's hooked up to a optional 4-speed transmission. And the thing that I'm really excited about is I checked the differential code, and it is an HG code differential, which means that I have a limited slip factory posi rear end with I believe it's a 327 overall gearing in it, which means that not only do I have something that's going to hook up on the dirt, in the snow, in any condition that I need, I'm also got something that has relatively usable highway gears. This car, quite honestly, down to the color, is the way I probably would have spec'd a brand new Corvair in 1963. When I pull the drivetrain off the Crossmember, I'm going to have to lower it all down onto the floor. So I want to make sure that I drain the gender fluid out of the transmission before I get that all down. Let's pull that drain plug out and see what it looks like. Oh! Okay, I got it.
What color is that supposed to be?
Amber like beer. Now the transmission is drained out. We want to drain the differential, which is ahead of it with the axles going into it. And we see that there's no drain hole. No plug. This is usually where the plug is supposed to be. It's where the manual shows it, but apparently they didn't drill and tap this one, so I guess that's not getting drained this way. Oh, that was easy. Oh, I got a bunch of dirt in there. Okay, sure. Not a whole lot in there. It's supposed to be almost up to the axle here, and there is not that much in there. I'm just about to put through a large Clark's order for parts for this thing, but I want to take advantage of my Napa employee discount while I can, and on the parts that are available for it. So let's pull the drums off real quick and check out those shoes and see what needs to really be replaced in there. Yes! Oh my god. Yeah, I forgot anti-seize. That's why it stuck. Here's something interesting. You can see that the drum is slightly slanted outward, kind of like this, with basically positive camber, and especially relative to the backing plate here. And that is because the rear wheel bearings on these are some kind of like spherical deal. So they can actually twist side to side a little bit, an angle, to compensate for the swing axle motion. All right, well, that's crusty enough. Oh, lovely. You know, the other side came right out. I don't know what's going on here. Snap that one off too. 3. Yep. Crap. One of the interesting things about a swing axle setup is that it's set up a lot like kind of half a live axle and half an independent. So we have our bearing over here that's pressed onto the axle shaft, and that retains the whole axle and wheel. So if your bearing fails, unfortunately your whole wheel pops off, just like a 9-inch Ford. And then over here we have a U-joint. So to get this axle shaft out of here and free the drivetrain from the suspension, we have to pull that U-joint out. All right. There we go. Now we gotta drop these 2 castle nuts from our trans mounts. Holy shit. It's turning the entire thing. I guess I gotta pull these off one by one. Nothing left to do here but move the whole cross member back, and that should allow us to work on these separately. Thankfully, the cross member is actually workable to pick up by hand, so we don't have to worry too much, but we're going to be very careful and move this thing back onto the new jack stand. Oh, hold on. What's going on there? Oh, jeez. That thing's... Oh, jeez. Gotta go forward. Watch out. Oh, my God. I'm comfortable with that. Well, that's it. We got the Corvair drivetrain separated from the cross member here. You can see our 2 transmission mounts there, and they go up under here and here. And then we got our drive shaft. So this nut has to come off, or this bolt has to come off inside the drive shaft. That's a fun one, put an impact on that. But afterward, it looks like that. And we're gonna have to take these off, take the springs out, take the shocks out, take the control arms off. So we got a lot of work to do still, but I think the big part is completed here. Don't go anywhere because we still got a lot of trouble to get into. We got the McPherson strut spring compressors, and the spring compressors would not fit on the spring here. This flange here is too wide. So we're gonna have to resort to measures. Ideally, I think you would pull these springs out and the shocks out while the whole unit's still in the car, and we didn't do that. So we're gonna have to do this. We got the tractor kind of pinning it down. We got some blocks under here so the control arms don't go anywhere. And then I'm going to try to cut the nuts off the top of the shocks. The shocks spin if you spin the nuts. A couple things will happen, hoping that the nut can fly off here into the bucket if it's gonna fly anywhere, that the entire spring won't let everything go when the shock lets loose, and that everything's gonna be really contained and relatively safe for what we're trying to do here. But do not try this at home. This is last resort kind of stuff.
Kind of jerked there for a sec.
So I think it's compressed like we wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take this one off, and then I hope it'll come apart when we lift the bucket up. So we did get a little pop on that side. I think it's time to lift this bucket up, and hopefully this thing will kind of and not do any weird stuff. Well, with the shock unattached at the top, we can get these off, and the spring will come loose. It'll be easy. Thankfully, we were able to get the nuts all off the control arm pivots here. Unfortunately, it looks like almost all the bolts are rusted inside the pivot, so it's going to be pretty hard to get those out. I'm not sure what we're going to do here. Tried to hammer a chisel in there. That didn't really work too well. So, back to the drawing board. Remember, righty tighty, lefty loosey. Oh, it's moving. Oh, shoot. Look at that. Okay, go ahead. I think if we turned that and whacked it, it should come out.
Go.
We've reached a milestone in this project. The Crossmember is out and there's nothing attached to it right now. It is just its own thing. We dumped about a pound of dirt out of the inside of that thing. The control arms are here as well. My dad was able to get enough channel locks and pliers on the e-brake cable to push that out. So that's just got 3 pins on it, or 3 kind of tabs. So as long as you get those tabs down, you can pull it out the hole. And I'm gonna take these to work tomorrow. We're gonna get a shop to push these yokes off of the drive shafts, and then we can pull the drive shafts out. And yeah, then I can work on getting the wheel cylinders off and everything else taken out. I want to drop the oil pan now, and one of the main reasons is that if I drop a piece of hardware, nut, or a bolt in the crankcase when I'm reinstalling stuff, it's going to be a bad day. So I think I have all the bolts out of here now. Let's see if we can pry this thing loose. Check out that pickup screen. There's nothing on it that I can see. Bottom of the crankcase looks really clean. I think I might be okay here if I can get the rest of that gasket off. So here's that oil pan. It looks pretty good to me. Nothing too concerning there. Last thing I want to do here is pull the starter off and see what's behind there. So, oh boy. Oof. Well, corrosion around the edge there, but the Bendix looks fine. I know there's some mouse house in there, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'll throw a vacuum in there and should be able to get stuff going. This will get a little bit of paint too. I apologize for how long this video took to put out. It was probably 4 times as long as I thought it was going to take, and I did not think it was going to be an easy job. Pulling that head off was probably a whole week in itself, and getting these yokes off the axle shafts probably took another half a week by itself. So I'm glad we're here. If there's one thing that I did different, that I would do different next time, would be to drop the engine and transaxle down first and leave the crossmember in the car. Then I would take the crossmember out afterward. The way I did it works. You can do it, but if you have a limited slip differential, you can't turn the wheels opposite ways to get that thing aimed out and rolled out of here. Before I get these parts powder coated, I have one rally modification to make. And I reached out to a guy who rallied in Alpine A110 in the early 70s in the Press On Regardless rally. So he sent me a reference photo for me to use, and if you can guess what modification I'm going to make off that reference photo, drop that in the comments. I'd love to hear if you can guess it. Otherwise, that's pretty much all there is here. I've got a bunch of parts to put in this thing, and I'm very excited to get this thing back on the road. So stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you next time. Press on.